The Newberry Library exhibition, Mapping Outside the Lines, showcases how map makers have developed a wide variety of lines to bring our world to life. The exhibition features dozens of diagrams, drawings, engravings, and lithographs, the majority from the Newberry's map collections, which number in the hundreds of thousands. Mapping Outside the Lines is free, open to all, and runs through February 14th, 2026 at the Newberry Library. For more information, visit newberry.org. Today on CityCast Chicago, we're talking about ICE's photo op at the Bean on Monday morning, Chicago's first snowfall and the impact on airports, and Mr. Sub's 50th birthday. It's Tuesday, November 11th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I've got executive producer Simone Alisea in the building. What's good, Simone?
Hey, Jacoby. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm getting a little sad because you're about to leave us for a few weeks. This is probably one of the final times people will hear you on mic, at least until December.
Yeah, but I'll be back.
I'm happy for you. You get to get out here, get a little bit of vacation time. I'm just being selfish because we're going to miss you. And I'm not going to lie. I feel like constant checking in, at least this year, on me and the Bears might have been some good mojo because you weren't really checking in the first couple of weeks when you was getting our ass beat. Last few weeks, you kind of been like, oh, how did the Bears do? Oh, the Bears won. And you know what, Simone? I think we 6-1 over the last 7 or so games. Fourth quarter comebacks galore. It's been nice.
I am utterly shocked. I'm always shocked when good things happen. So, hey, we're here for it.
Hey, if you lead a city in the luck change, you're gonna hear about it. I'd like to leave you alone when you're on vacation, but you might get a text that say, "Bring your ass back." Pretty much every single start of the week over the last few months has been you and me and Michelle just sort of checking in about the latest stories involving Border Patrol and ICE. It feels like every weekend they pick another Chicago neighborhood to go into to either harass or start mass arresting people in the community, eventually start tear gassing and shooting pepper balls. And last week when we came in, they had really set their attention and their sights on Little Village, and that has clearly continued. I saw a video Saturday morning. So SUVs pulled up just in the middle of the street, and ICE and Border Patrol agents just sort of hopping out like, all right, y'all know what the mission is. Let's go out there and scare the hell out this neighborhood today.
It's so interesting, given that DHS, Department of Homeland Security, ICE, Border Patrol has been so upset by car caravans that Chicagoans have put on in an attempt to try to keep an eye on immigration enforcement. They themselves engage in a vehicle convoy in Little Village on Saturday. Neighbors tried to follow them, tried to record and what was going on and help their neighbors. It got really, really chaotic. At one point, Homeland Security put out a statement that someone had fired shots at immigration agents. They said that someone drove by in a black Jeep and fired shots. Chicago police did respond to a call of shots fired at immigration agents. And then the picture kind of got a little clearer, not really, on Monday. So the Sun-Times got a hold of a police report about this. CPD did arrest a man who was accused of pointing a gun from a black Jeep at a woman. Unclear if that was an agent or not. And he is in custody for unlawful possession of a weapon, but he's not charged with actually shooting the gun. We also know that police did find shell casings at the scene, which obviously suggests some shots were fired. So that part may actually be true, but we don't know who fired them or at whom or why. So there's obviously a lot about the circumstances here that we don't really know. And I think there was a lot of skepticism of DHS's initial story over the weekend.
My first thought was this sounds like sort of the Boy Who Cries Wolf saga. But this is actually the wolf who cries wolf. saga, it feels like, because there have been a few times, as our Hey Chicago newsletter editor Emmy Mack has pointed out in a recent article, there have been multiple times that the initial story that DHS provides to the rest of us, whether it was the narrative that they put out in the aftermath of the shooting of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, we've been at this point in chaos in which the first story that goes out, the one provided by Homeland Security, the one that gets picked up and circulated around the city and the state, a few days later, we find the good work of our colleagues and journalists around the city sort of disprove a lot of their talking points. Again, I'm not sure at the time of us recording how accurate their accounts of things are here, but they've created a situation in Chicago in which we don't believe their stories.
Right. A federal judge herself, U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis, has said that DHS has proven to be uncredible in multiple instances, right? There are always reasons to be skeptical of sort of the law enforcement narrative immediately in the aftermath of some kind of event. But in the case of DHS, what we are seeing is pretty blatant untruths, if not lies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Greg Bovino was in court and said, basically told a judge, we haven't violated anyone's rights. We haven't used any excessive force. And the judge is like, I see the videos.
Well, and not only that, but he admitted to lying about, last time we were talking about immigration agents in Little Village. Initially he had said that he had launched, because there's all this video of him launching a tear gas canister. And he said that he did that because he was hit by a rock, that a protester threw a rock at him. And that is when he threw the tear gas canister. He admitted in testimony that that was a lie, that wasn't true, that he says that someone did throw a rock at him, but that it happened after he threw the tear gas. And so in Little Village, and we saw them again deploying tear gas. They were also pepper spraying people, specifically a father and his one-year-old daughter who was pepper sprayed in the face. There was a sort of a swell on Saturday morning, and then kind of it died down, and then another on Saturday afternoon. You also saw tensions between Little Village neighbors and CPD. CPD was doing crowd control and sort of blocking the people who were following that convoy, blocking them from doing that. So you saw some tensions there as well. And I think CPD made a few arrests in addition to arrests made by immigration agents. But yeah, just sort of another very chaotic scene, only to be followed up Monday morning.
It looked like it was dozens of them out there. According to the Block Club piece, they pulled up.
Yeah, so the Block Club photographer, Colin Boyle, which shout out to him for being out there and catching this. So Border Patrol and ICE, these federal agents, all gathered at the Bean for a photo op to take a picture.
After 6 a.m. Mm-hmm.
To take a big picture. And according to Block Club, when they were all gathering to take the picture, you heard an agent yell, "Everyone say Little Village," and then everybody responding, "Little Village." Which
we've constantly talked about how these raids are not new. These deportation campaigns are not new. The type of racist talking points that a lot of this sits on is not new. But at least for some of us, what feels new is this sort of revelry, this enjoyment of the cruelty. Like I have heard law enforcement my entire life cuss at protesters, cuss at individuals. But the vitriol at which these agents are talking to Chicagoans, when they're screaming out that this is our city, when they're launching tear gas out the windows, again, this is not new. I see how we got here, but I know for a ton of Chicagoans, I don't think they've seen this type of full scale marketing alongside this cruelty. So much of this usually happens in the dark or away from the camera, but they're like the entire time they got a cameraman with them making documentaries.
This is the thing, right? when you see stuff like this, it comes out in like leaked text messages, right? That's usually where this stuff comes out. It's someone got a hold of something that they weren't even really supposed to see. This is out blatantly in the open as part of a propaganda effort. And, they are outright celebrating their work. And I mean, Bavino said it in testimony at one point, too, before the judge sort of found that they had repeatedly violated an order trying to limit the use of riot weapons against journalists and protesters. But Bavino tried to say, not only do I think that my agents' conduct has been exemplary, he said, it's been more than exemplary, their use of force. It is a full-throated endorsement of all of the actions that are taking place here in Chicago. And, it's interesting because I guess the other sort of interesting detail in the Block Club story is that there was a park employee who was walking by and I guess warned that the artist of Cloudgate, Anish Kapoor, can be very litigious and is very particular about how images of his art is used.
He actually filed a lawsuit back in 2018 against the NRA because they used video of it back in 2017. They settled.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see if anything comes of that. They also saw that Block Club was there. And when they identified that, someone called out, said, hey, mask up, basically, like the media is here, a photographer is here, don't show your face. And then they, sort of took aim at Block Club too. Bavino called Block Club Chicago Liars Club, questioning the publication's coverage on federal immigration operations, asking my favorite question that people in power always ask when they're doing something wrong, which is, how come you never report on the work we do to improve the community? Bavino inquired.
Bavino is a goofy who has gone on record multiple times talking about being celebrated across the streets of Chicago. And then 30 seconds later will say he's being stalked, accosted, and unable to do his job in Chicago. Which one is it? They want it both ways. At least for, sort of Chicagoans who are always at the ready to defend law enforcement or always asking us to sort of have nuance and to be patient. Like, I hope they see how meaningless the sort of bad apple argument is in a case like this, where you could say, oh, no. These are just some bad officers inside of Border Patrol and ICE. This goes throughout the rank and file, goes throughout their leadership, and their mandate goes directly back to the president of the United States, the people who are overseeing Border Patrol. Like, you can see the direct connection from the fallacious, racist rhetoric of the president, the violence of his administration, and its direct consequence on the streets of Chicago.
It's worth noting it's been 2 months since Operation Midway Blitz started. It officially kind of kicked off early September. At the time, there was never any, sort of timeline given for how long it would last. There was sort of speculation it would last over a month. Something I've been thinking about a lot, and I think the snow has only prompted for me, is I am really curious, frankly, if these federal agents will last the winter. One thing that occurs to me is, right, and this is all entirely speculative, right? We certainly have no idea. None of us is privy to the inner workings of the Department of Homeland Security. But I sort of have two thoughts about this. One is, you spoke with Manny Ramos last week, who did some reporting about like local companies who had contracts with ICE and DHS. And one of the contracts that Manny talked about was an agency that helps to relocate people and who helped relocate a bunch of federal agents to Chicago, right? They found places to live and things like that, right? So that particular factoid suggests that a lot of these people are not from here. And which makes me wonder how prepared or equipped they are to survive a Chicago winter. I think that's one thing. I think another thing that it makes me think about is kind of to your point is like, I do wonder if it means a reduction in, say, big street demonstrations. The weather so far has been really, really mild. A lot of this stuff has taken place on like some of the most beautiful days of the fall. You know what I mean? Like it has been relatively easy for folks to gather out in the streets when something like this happens. And then, of course, sort of relatedly, relatively easy for federal agents to then gather and throw tear gas I wonder if it means we see a reduction in that kind of stuff, but we do continue to see some of these more targeted raids, arrests, operations of people trying to get into people's houses, trying to get into people's workplaces, things like that, which, again, what may end up happening is we kind of see it forced below the surface, that we're not seeing it play out on our streets as much. Again, I think my hope would be the former. My hope would be that the winter is just so harsh and, the Trump administration gets bored and they leave. But I don't know. I don't know what it will mean. I do think it will change things, though. I think especially if we continue to see any like snowfall like this in particular.
Has stopped. And so I wonder if that was is on the forecast right now, was this supposed to be our little brief snowstorm and now the rest of the week sort of warms up?
It is. Yeah. So, and that's the other thing we're going to see is like the rest of this week. By the time you guys hear this, we're talking right now and there's still snow on the ground, but I'm literally watching it melt, from the rafters of my, of my building here. It is going to be cooler than it has been. In the forecast, temps are looking like, I think kind of 40s, 50s rather than like 50s, 60s, but I don't know that we have more snow in the immediate future coming anytime soon.
Christmas always comes early around Chicago, and if you're already dreaming of snow, Paramount Theater in Aurora is here with the holiday cheer. Snow, snow, snow. You don't get it yet? Well, how about this? Irving Berlin's White Christmas is playing from November 12th through January 11th. It's the beloved story you know and love from the classic movie, done with that Paramount flair that makes it an unforgettable experience. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're in for a great time. There's going to be epic dance numbers, spectacular costumes, pageantry, spectacle. I mean, come on. The best things happen while you're dancing. The best things happen while you're dancing. Irving Berlin's White Christmas is a family favorite that can bring generations together to celebrate the magic of the holidays. Get your tickets today at ParamountAurora.com. When you're dancing.
When most of us want to learn a new language, it's not because we're dying to memorize grammar tables or ace a quiz. It's because we actually want to speak it out in the real world with real people. And that's what Babbel is great at, getting you there fast. Hey, it's Michael Zibiak, Chief Revenue Officer here at CityCast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after graduation, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. And right now, my Spanish is, let's just say, very high school level. Shout out to Senior Patty from Syosset High School. You tried. When we're in Spain, I'd love to do more than just ask where the bathroom is. I want to be able to chat with locals, order tapas, and actually connect, not just read the menu and point. So I'm starting with Babbel. It's all about small steps, big wins, and it's super easy to fit into my life. Honestly, with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit right into my day, between meetings or over my morning coffee. I'm excited to pick up some real-world Spanish before we go, so we can experience Spain like locals, not tourists. Doesn't that sound better? Right now, Babbel's got a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/CityCast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
So when you pair the first snow with the longest federal government shutdown in history, that has created a lot of uncertainty and confusion at the airports around the country. And given that O'Hare is one of the busiest in the nation, it has been deeply impacted. Simone, I think we're going into the second pay period where air traffic controllers are not getting paid. And over the weekend, the FAA passed a mandate for people to cut back on the number of flights going in and out. How did that impact Chicago? And then, how did things sort of get a little bit more difficult as the snow rolled in?
Yeah, so heading into the weekend, Chicago was on the list of cities where we were expecting major flight delays, major cancellations as a result of essentially staff not coming in, not being able to come in because they're not getting paid because of shutdown issues. And then you coupled that with the snow that began to fall Sunday night, which resulted in, according to ABC Chicago, it was something like 400 canceled flights at O'Hare Sunday night, plus another, 200 or so on Monday morning, and which is a lot. That's a lot of flights.
I think total something like 10% of all flights were impacted over these last couple of days.
Yeah, it was like 2,100 flights nationwide. If you traveled this weekend, I'm so sorry. That can't have been good. Of course, now we know that Senate Democrats have broken to reach a deal on the shutdown stuff. Would expect things to sort of start slowly reopening, paychecks.
Yeah, folks said it's going to take some days and weeks.
It's going to take some time. I wouldn't expect any of your November travel to go smoothly, is sort of the long and short of it. I would prepare. And as somebody who is going to be at O'Hare Friday evening, I feel I'm in it with you. I am right here. I understand. The beauty of being in Chicago is you can get a direct international flight. And so I am hopeful that my flight will be less impacted, although it's wild because yesterday was also the day I bought tickets to go to Seattle for Christmas. And I was just sitting there like, literally sitting there and being like, what would it take for me to drive to Seattle over Christmas?
Ooh.
How much would it cost to take a train? I was really plotting out other options. I was really trying to figure it out because I was like, I do not know if I'm going to be able to fly to Seattle for Christmas.
I think I left October 31st and had to fly into Atlanta. I would say midway. I will say them pre-check lines, them TSA pre-check lines is getting a little bit longer, but they weren't as bad. But I do feel like I just escaped the worst of it flying a week and a half ago versus this past weekend.
As I'm preparing to take this trip, the real thing I was also worried about is like coming back. I was like, I don't know what the state of the airports is going to be in 2 weeks. I truly have no idea. But Jacoby, the other interesting thing as we talk about airport travel and being at O'Hare and Midway, you and I have very different approaches to going to the airport.
Very different. Yeah. So let's say I had to fly out I left October 30th. It was a Thursday, which is not necessarily the easiest day to travel.
Was it an evening or morning?
It was morning. I think the flight was at 7:30. The only reason I got to the airport an hour early is because to check a bag, you have to be there earlier. Most times, though, when I flew maybe the month prior to that, I rode up to the airport maybe 15 minutes before boarding. Went straight through.
That's so stressful.
Straight through TSA and walked straight onto the plane. And when I got to the gate, no one was out there. They had boarded the entire flight. They weren't at the point where they were like calling my name on the intercom, and the agent at the front gate didn't seem like panicked, like, hey, because I've had a few times where I've done this. I got to the gate and they were like, bro, we've been calling you. They didn't do this. They was just like, oh, hey, I got to sit right down. But yeah, I'm never getting there 2-3 hours ahead of time. That's not me. I did that when I was younger, when I first started flying. I'm not gonna say I would rather miss a flight at this point, but yeah, I would rather deal with the anxiety of rushing to the gate, getting that sort of Home Alone 2 feel, sort of, oh, where's Kevin? Oh no, he's in New York, he's not in Florida. I'd rather go through that
Jacoby,
than be up hours earlier.
Jacoby, the amount of wrong you are is so overwhelming.
It hasn't bit me in the ass yet. I will say, once going to Midway, the train, I caught a long freight train. I did miss the flight on that one. But yeah, I felt panicked the whole time. And that felt like I was running up against it. This most recent time, I felt good the whole time. I was like, oh, it is.
My heart rate is up right now. No, I am 2 hours ahead for domestic flights. Often I'm 3 hours ahead for an international flight. because
my last international flight was 8 hours delayed. I ain't never doing that again.
I absolutely prefer to get there early, go through security early, and then you're in a glorified mall, right? That's the beauty of an airport these days, is it's just a mall. So you can go around. There's
but you can smoke your vape at the mall, Simone.
It's fine. It's fine. That's why you have edibles, Jacoby. That's what the point of them is. I like to go, and again, I like to treat it like a mall. I like to walk around before I have to sit down for several hours on this tiny little tube. The one thing I'm not is I am not someone who's trying to board as early as possible. I wait at the gate for everybody to kind of go through and then be at the end of the line because
do you check all your bags? Are you walking around with because that's the thing. I also would rather not check a bag, so I also don't want to be lugging a duffel bag or a big suitcase around with me.
So this is the thing, is I have a small roller, and the small roller is so easy to maneuver around and just hang out with. You know what I mean? That's chill. There's actually a shop in O'Hare. Gosh, I really wish I could remember the name of it because it's almost like a it's cool. It's they've got art and stuff.
I will say the walk from the Orange Line through Midway, the amount of local art they've put up.
Yeah.
Too uncomfortable and expensive of places to have extra time.
I'm not going to buy anything.
I know, but
I look around.
I can't trust myself with that. I'm there for longer than 45 minutes. $9 gummy bears, $12 water.
Let's see, that seems like a personal problem.
I like to people watch, but also sort of post-pandemic, the airport kind of gets me a little anxious, just sort of sitting there, all of these different people in this non-place. And so, yeah, I'm going to keep cutting it extreme. Right now it's a little terrifying, but I'm going to keep cutting it extremely close. It hasn't, I'm recently getting through security and walking straight on a plane is one of the best feelings in the world. It is one of, it's like walking, not.
See, you
not
couldn't
running,
do this. You could not do this if you lived in Houston.
Have you ever
absolutely could not do
up
this
to
if you
the
lived
platform?
in Houston.
You didn't put no extra effort in, and you got on the train platform, and the doors open right when you got up.
Yes,
and you walk
yes,
right.
I understand. Yes.
That kind of I feel like a warlock getting to the airport with all of this potential chaos, and somehow just gliding onto the plane.
But here's the thing, I get that feeling, Jacoby.
Superpower.
Here's how I get that feeling, Jacoby. It's when I see a couple or a family that are rushing to get to the gate that I've been sitting at for 30 minutes. Got all their bags and they're trying to fit their stuff in, and they realize their carry-on doesn't fit in the thing because it was matched for this airline, but not for this airline. And they didn't look ahead of time, and they don't know what boarding group they're in. And one of them's yelling at the other one, and they don't. See, I get the satisfaction of being like, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I just look at them and go, hey, relax. That's what edibles are for. Relax.
That's what we learned from this conversation is this is what edibles are for.
Yep. Again, we're going to continue to follow updates, whether it's weather related, whether it's related to the government shutdown. But make sure you subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago, by going to chicago.citycast.fm.
Guess what? CityCast has some news. I'm Sean McPherson, the host of CityCast Twin Cities.
And I'm Jane Sihu, and I'm the host of CityCast Seattle. Hey, if you have a friend in one of our cities, can you text them for us?
Yeah, something, simple like, hey, how's that rash doing? And do you listen to podcasts? Because I have one you're definitely going to like. After that, tell them that CityCast has helped you become more informed, more involved, and more connected to your amazing city.
We're going to help that person you know in Seattle who's been trying to make friends.
And we're also going to do that for that guy you only kind of knew in college who moved back to the Twin Cities after graduation.
Don't we all have that guy?
Yeah, and usually that guy is named Todd.
So did you text them yet?
Jane, let's just wait a minute. We don't want to rush anybody. We'll do a little small talk. How's everything going in Seattle?
Beautiful, beautiful. Fall leaves popping. How about Twin Cities?
Today, beautiful and sunshiny in St. Paul. Okay, Jane, I bet they are done texting by now, and I just want to remind them, hey, you, please tell that friend to subscribe to CityCast Twin Cities or Seattle, wherever you get your podcasts.
Or if you don't want to text them and you're really just on Instagram sending them DMs all the time with funny videos, send them a DM of our latest videos. You can find us at CityCast Twin Cities or CityCast Seattle on Instagram. Thanks.
Simone, let's finish out one of my favorite submarine places growing up. In fact, for a while, my mom used to work in recent years, like across the street from them. So I've had him a few more times in the last probably like 5 years, is Mr. Submarine. Maybe some people know them from their jingles back in the 80s and 90s. Maybe you've had a Mr. Sub recently, but Simone, have you ever gone to Mr. Submarine?
I've never had the sandwich. I am only familiar with Mr. Submarine as a brand because we talked about Mr. Submarine in an episode we did about sort of nostalgic Chicago commercials, and specifically their commercial that they did with Scottie Pippen. I think came up in that episode.
That was kind of the cringe. Maybe it wasn't the jingle as much as it was some of their commercial choices.
The jingle is perfectly fine. Yeah. They just sort of had their artistic direction was
Chicago's original sub, Mr. Submarine.
Yeah, it's the jingle's fun.
And then Scotty come in with a 6-foot sub. Yeah, and then these cheerleaders come over. Let's have a party. And then they just eating subs on the court.
With your favorite meats and cheeses.
For the best tasting meal around, Mr. Submarine is the real stuff.
Mr. Submarine.
Well, right. So I'm only familiar with them from the commercials that we talked about in sort of an academic context. But I saw that Mr. Submarine is turning 50 years this year. They've, been serving up sandwiches since 1975. And to celebrate, they're releasing 50 unique commercials, all kind of inspired by the commercials of old. The sort of
a lot of riffs on the jingle.
Yes. So many riffs on the jingle. When I saw this, I was positively delighted. I love the commercial format as an avenue for humor, actually. And I've only watched like, I don't know, maybe like 10 of the 50 commercials that they have put out. There are some that I really like. They do a take on the Eagle Man, the old Eagle Man commercials.
Yes.
That is really funny to me. The other one I really liked that I saw was a one where it's like a man and a woman, and the woman's like, "How tall are you?" And the guy's like, "Oh, I don't know, like 6'1". And then they come with the 6-foot sub and he stands up and it's taller than him. It feels like such a great, it's like a great little modern twist. And I think it's fun.
The first one I clicked on was Ozzie Guillen signals for his closer. Familiar face. I had to check it out. But I will say, when the idea of releasing 50 unique commercials, what an impressive feat. And then I started digging into some of the commercials and I got a better sense of how they pulled it off. There's some local faces. They say they used
40 of the commercials used local actors. Yeah.
40 of the commercials used local actors. And I do recognize some of these local actors. In fact, I have sat in some casting offices for callbacks with some of these local actors. The concept and a lot of these are funny. The riffs on the jingles are funny, but it's clear the only reason they're really able to pull off 50 of these is because they do use some AI in some of these commercials. When I looked at the Let's See Where He Is Today, which is a play off of a commercial with like a black businessman from back in the day talking about how much he loves the Chicago Mr. Sub. And they're like, where is he at today? And so an older version of him sort of comes up and is like, I haven't left here in 50 years. And my immediate reaction was like, that's not one of them local actors they talking about. That's, as far as I know, having seen a few of these AI videos over the last few years, it's clear that some of the people and some of the graphics in these videos are using AI, to which I said it to you straight up, Simone. I didn't want to hate on this. I wanted to just look at this concept straight up, like 50 commercials celebrating 50 years. That's fire. But I will say, in a city that is known for producing classic commercials, classic jingles, the idea that it isn't fully reliant on local Chicago talent, like physical talent, but that some of these people are not our neighbors, but are AI generated, it's tough. AI is just a threat to any and all we do, whether it is storytelling, story design, or story execution. And so I would have loved to see them pull this off without using AI. But nevertheless, it is still a cool concept and a cool idea.
Yeah.
I just you just stay low budget. Just keep the low budget feel from the commercials in the 80s and 90s. That was good enough.
Well, it's interesting, Jacoby, because I was thinking about this because I'm certainly AI always puts a damper on things for me. It certainly never makes me excited about anything.
People supposed to be like giving each other high five, and you see their fingers just melting together.
They did admit to using AI, Quality Meats did, for specifically the commercials that feature some of the characters from their old commercials in the future, right? That specifically. And then I do think they have another commercial that is like explicitly about AI, sort of like, could AI do this? And I will say though, Jacoby, just for the sake of making the point, in a way, I think using AI generated images is the sort of cheap technique of 2025.
It is. Oh,
in a way,
I
it is like,
understand why they use it.
It is the corny, cringy concept of today, is using AI generated images in your commercial products.
But it does feel a little tone deaf. And not only do I go, oh no, don't use AI, but I also go, for such a big anniversary celebration, do you want to run the risk of people seeing these commercials and just going, nope, not going back to Mr. Sub. Don't love this.
I think you're overestimating the amount of criticism they're going to get for this. They did do a ton of shooting locally too. They shot over 2 days in Downers Grove. They even talk about sort of like the budget was sort of part of it. They didn't have a huge budget for this project.
It ain't Al's. It ain't Portillo's.
Yes.
Still a banging sandwich. And when I think about sort of the Submarine sandwich that I had growing up, it was typically a Mr. Sub. Iceberg lettuce, double ham, the onion, the vinegar and oil. Like it's still, I've had it in the last couple months. Still a damn good sandwich for what it's worth. And so shout out to 50 years for Mr. Sub. If you haven't had one, find a reason to go pull up. But yeah, I wish they didn't make me have to hate on these commercials. Y'all did that, not me. But if you do want to check them out, be the judge of yourself, we will drop a link in the show notes. Before we get out of here, please join me in giving a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alisea.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Of course, we can't get out of here without some good news. I just want to show some love to the Greater Chicago Sudanese American Association, a local organization who is working tirelessly to raise awareness around the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Sudan amid the proxy war between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces. If you are wondering how you can send aid, use your voice to bring more and more awareness to this crisis, then please visit the link in our show notes. As always, I appreciate y'all for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace. I know you're not leaving now, but good luck, my friend.
Good luck's funny. I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be great.
It's going to go smoothly. You're going to be there with plenty of time. Watch.